Hi everyone. So today I'm taking it easy. I'm still recovering from my flu, and I'm just going to do this video, and it is exciting, however, because I want to show you how I discovered how you can make a portable little palette with these Dr. P.H. Martin's Radiant Concentrate. Personally, I have not seen any videos on this, so I don't know if anything like that is available on YouTube, but I have discovered this just by doing swatches. So there was one video which I showed you. I wanted to show you when I first got the A set. I'll just grab it here to show you. So when I got this A set, I was doing swatches, and on this card I wanted to show you the full concentration of the watercolor. So what I did was I just took brush and took some watercolor paper and did circles with a wet brush, and then just dropped the watercolors straight in. I think it was only one drop of watercolor, and then I let them dry, and I ended up with this. So later on I thought they look so concentrated, and because I'll give you a sneak peek, I ordered peerless watercolors, and I'm also supposed to get another pack of these, which I'll do a separate video. So those are watercolor sheets, so I thought, why don't I try to use it that way? So for example, wet the brush, go into a watercolor, say for example the juniper green, and you can see how it picks up the pigment, and then put your swatch over here, then you get a beautiful watercolor. You can continue painting with it. Obviously it is not as concentrated as the actual dye, but you want to see the color anyway. You don't want it to be that dark, because here it almost looks like black. So it has great vibrancy. So then I thought, why don't I actually start using this? And I started using it, and I think I showed you in a few videos that if I need to pick up a little bit of color, for example, for something very small like when I'm doing lips or cheeks in my illustrations, then I only need a little bit anyway. I'll show you a quick example in my sketchbook. So for example, something like this, I only need a very little, and that would be great because I can use this dot for quite a few sessions. Now obviously you can make these bigger, you can make them squares, you can put more drops, you can create bigger spaces, and that way you could have more color in them, and so you would be able to use them for bigger illustrations. But it's not like having a full bottle, if that makes sense. So if I need, for example, a lot of black ink, I wouldn't be able to get much out of this, also in a very concentrated shape and form. But it's great to have a little palette like this, just to take with you, to put in your journal or your traveler's notebook insert, and take it with you. So today I'm intending to show you how I created this. I put a little acetate sheet over it, because it is, so that it doesn't transfer, and then you can just close it when the paints are still wet and not have any problems. Now, so I decided to experiment a little bit with different papers, because the one I used here is the watercolor paper, and it worked really, really well, except for the three new colors. So these three are the three bottles that I bought separately. So the Tahiti Red, Sunrise Pink, and Tropic Pink. And here I used 1 drop, and here I used 3 drops. And I had trouble picking up any color at all. Let me just do it now again. Sorry, I'm so blocked up. This flu seems quite major. So you can see there is nothing coming off at all. I don't get this like a white dot, which indicates that I picked up some something out. So if I'm going to go, it's very pale, so hardly anything. So I consider that as a failure, so it doesn't really do what I need to do. So here even worse. And then just for the sake of it, let's try this one, which is the darkest. And I'm working here a lot harder than I had to do on the others. Nothing. So let's try the three drops where there is more concentration of the watercolor, and it doesn't seem to be doing anything. No, exactly the same. So I'm not gonna, let me try the darker one. No. Okay, so for some reason these three didn't work, but I have to say that these three watercolors are completely clear. They don't have any of that sort of dye settling at the bottom. Now I have emailed Dr. P.H. Martins to ask whether it's normal to have the dye or the pigment settling, as you can see here, whether that's supposed to happen or not, because the three colors that I ordered separately, they were completely clear. So I'm not sure whether it has anything to do with that, the fact that this has more concentration and therefore it works for something like that, or something different. So the three colors I couldn't get to work at all. So then I thought, why don't I try it on a different paper? And the paper I'm using here is 100% cellulose. So what that means is, so this was 300 GSM cold press, so it has those grooves and the watercolor kind of sits better in them, so that might be why it worked quite well. So this one is 300 as well, and it's hot pressed, so it's smooth and 100% cellulose. So what that means, it's kind of repels watercolor and it gives you a different effect. So I personally prefer this type of watercolor paper because for painting it's more interesting. But I thought, what happens if I try to do these dots here? Obviously it takes a very long time, a lot longer to dry, because they just sit, instead of penetrating the paper, they just sit on top. And yeah, so that takes long, and you can't even use the heat gun in the beginning because it's like a bubble of paint sitting on top. So if you try to blow at it, it will just kind of go everywhere. Now I try to do a swatch here, and just with a brush, so not doing the technique that I did on these, but just kind of taking a wet brush and going straight into the watercolor and doing a very concentrated swatch. And then I tried to pick up watercolor, and it works really well. So there you go. So that's Scarlet, by the way, the color. And here I have demonstrated, so this is I picked up from here, and this color I picked up from the watercolor paper, which seems a little bit more intense to me. So I think I will let these dry. And the other thing is as well, when you wet the paper, it should be very little water on there, because you don't need as much water as on here. Here the water kind of penetrates the paper and you hardly have any time to drop in the watercolor, because the wet area starts to dry and becomes smaller, so you have to work really quickly. Here the water just sits on top, so you need very little, so you kind of need to squeeze out your brush to make it just a little bit wet, and that will be enough. So I will try and do the same thing here. I wanted to see if these colors would be any good. These are the two from the new ones, whether they would work better. So I'll try to use the heat gun now, because they're sort of halfway there. Okay, I think I might do 2 parts for this video because it's going to be quite long. So I just used my heat gun. As you can see, I made the paper go up a little bit, so it needs to cool down. So I dried kind of halfway, and let me try and go into the dry area, see how much color I can get. So here I used 2 drops. Yeah, so that's quite nice. And Oh, look how beautiful. Super, super bright. So this one was the cherry red. Sorry, yeah, the second one is the cherry red from the A set. And now I'm very excited to see if anything happens at all with this one, which is Tropic Pink. This one's completely dry, so I'm going to... not really, it still doesn't work, so just out of curiosity I'll try the Tahiti red, but I don't think any of it is working. No, it's very pale. So I will not do these three because it doesn't seem to work for whatever reason, but we'll just concentrate on the set A because that works beautifully with it. I can't believe actually how intense this color is. You can actually see it looks like this color, but this is obviously the concentrate, but yeah, super beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how I'm doing this. So I'm going to do, like I said, just wet the brush slightly, squeeze out most of the water, and then I'm just going to do a circle like that so that there is not much water sitting there, but enough for me to go ahead and squeeze in. So I'm shaking these bottles, but I'm not shaking them too much. If there is still some pigment left, then I don't really worry about it. I think I'm going to just do one drop as I did on the watercolor paper because it also dries faster, and that's all I'm going to do. So like I said, it's up to you how big you make these. I'm just going to make roughly this size. So it is important that the area that you drop it in is wet because that will make the color, it will determine the shape of the swatch, so to speak. And if it dries out and you can't see anything glossy left on the paper, then you go back, re-wet it, and then do the next one like this. Okay, I'm just going to do the rest of them.